When I started to look about studying this verse, it made me think of my life as a child. I was one of those kids. You probably know this kid, and when I tell you what I'm about to tell you, you will either go, I was that kid, or I know a kid who behaves like that. When someone would buy me candy, Skittles, M&Ms, or such, and then someone else, normally an adult, would say, let me have some, I felt it was my right as the owner of the Skittles and the M&Ms to give them the least amount of candy as possible. So I would do things like bite an M&M in half and give you half of an M&M. How many of you have you ever experienced a child like that? My daughter is that way to the point she was 3 and she had pizza, and I used to do it to mess with her. And I said, Lena, give Daddy a bite of pizza. She said, mine. And I said, young lady, you better give me a bite of that pizza. So she took her pizza. She pulled off the smallest piece you could possibly get in her little fingers, and she brought it over and said, careful, careful, here. And that was all I got, was this itty bitty, this little bitty bit. I worked to buy that pizza. I provided that pizza for her. It was not her pizza. I just wanted her to give me a bite of the pizza, and this little bitty bit was what I got. All that to be said, that today when I was beginning to read and go through this scripture, this text, I thought, man, we all kind of still act that way. So, before we jump into it, just to prepare all of us who are good capitalists in the room, who love our stuff, who are consumer driven, who are constantly looking forward to the next best thing to make our lives better, please don't shoot the messenger this morning. I did not write the book of Acts. Luke did. And I did not say the things that we're going to talk about today. God did. And so it should be an inspiration to you that way. Know that studying it, thinking about it, these scriptures are incredibly convicting to me also. I'm not trying to irritate you. I am, in fact, not a commie or a dictator or a Democrat or any other thing that you can come up with to try to cast judgment on me because of the text we're going to look at this morning. I'm simply just an overweight pastor who wants people to love Jesus like I love Jesus. And hopefully as we study this text this morning, you can recognize that. All right? So, all that to be said, I say that because the verse that really stuck with me was the first one here. So, verse 32 of chapter 4 says, now, the full number of those who believed were of one heart and soul. No one said that any of the things that belonged to him was his own. They had everything in common. Oh boy, here we go, right? So some of you, I don't know, you may be like, oh, here we go. It's going to be about hippie communes and living together and being weird, and I'm not doing that. I like my TV and I like my stuff, and I don't want to have a conversation about I can give my stuff to somebody else who doesn't have stuff because I work for my stuff, and I shouldn't have to give my stuff to somebody who doesn't have stuff because it's my stuff. So what is going on here? Well, if you jump into commentaries, one of the things that they do say is this is probably true because if you don't know, Jesus dies and resurrects, and when he comes back from the dead, there's no Christianity in the world. Christian itself, the very term, was used as a derogatory term to make fun of believers early on, and Christians liked it so much they just adopted it. But it was not supposed to be a term of endearment. It was supposed to be derogatory, like, you dum-dums are followers of Christ, right? That was the thought process. So they're facing great persecution early on because of their faith, right? Things are not easy for them. So when you read commentaries, oftentimes what they say is this is going on the way it's going on, and they're taking care of each other because they can't find work, and they're afraid that the government is going to get them, and so they are living together and taking care of each other because of that. I think it's also important to say, though, that you can't run all the way down that road and go, we don't face persecution, so this isn't about us. There's also the underlying thing that we've talked about when we've been looking through Acts and discussing this. These people are radically transformed by Jesus. They are different than the world around them. So it does make sense in that context then when you think about consumerism and stuff, that they have gotten to the place where they are more concerned with needs presented in their community being met so that people can grow in their faith than they are with just owning things and hoarding things. Really, it comes down to, what are you worshiping, right? Because the things that you worship are the things that you value, that are sacred, that you protect, that you aren't willing to give on, that you're intolerant of people messing with. That's the stuff that's important to you. And so when we talk about Christianity, are you one of those people that go, hey, believe whatever you want to believe, it's fine, as for me, we're going to believe this way. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or offend anybody, but if we talk about your money, then you have all of these rules and opinions, and you're rigid. Like, who's God in your life? Like, what are we worshiping here? What's important? It's important for all of us to recognize that we live in a consumer-driven world. Everything in America is consumer-driven. Yesterday, like I said, I woke up and said, I need to lose weight like I do every day. And then I said to the wife, I need to lose weight. And she said, yep, let's start a diet on Monday. And I said, you've convinced me to wait. And so then she said she wanted Olive Garden. And I said, it's like terrible outside. And she's like, not till 2. So it's 11. So we can go, if we go right now and get Olive Garden. And I said, order it, I'll go pick it up. And when I went out and got in my car, there was ice all over the windows. And I drove in my car, and I got my Olive Garden, and I drove back, and I came in, and I gave the food to everybody, and I was flustered from watching some guy wreck his car, and I didn't want to eat with anybody else, and so everybody kind of went their own way. And I sat down in the kitchen, and I was thinking about preaching today, and I started looking around the house. Everything in my eye shot was marketed. It's such I don't have anything in my kitchen that wasn't marketed. I don't have a rock, right? Or like a tree limb. I don't have the countertop. Somebody made the countertop and tried to sell the countertop to somebody else, right? I didn't make the countertop. I didn't put the countertop in. The house older than me. Somebody bought that countertop, put it in the cabinets. Somebody made the cabinets. Somebody made a little hardware thing that goes on the cabinets. You ever gone to buy hardware for your cabinet? There's like 19 rows of cabinet hardware. And if you're a dude, you don't really get to say, you have a wife, you just do what she wants because you learn in life, make her happy, and life's much easier. And if you don't know that, learn it now. It's not worth the fight to have an opinion about cabinet hardware. So you just go stand there while she just looks at the cabinet hardware that all looks the same. To me, it all looks the same. It's just bronze hardware. This is all bronze. Like there's 90 rows of bronze hardware, and we got to stand. But somewhere, somebody sat down in a room with some sort of AutoCAD program and designed these hardware, and then said, "That's what we'll put out there. We'll make." You don't just go and go like, "I need cabinet hardware," because we could, right? Like, it's not like we're breaking new ground with cabinet hardware. It's just something to open the door. You can use a screw. You can just screw in the door. Oh, the door works now. This is pragmatic and works. But no, it's got to be pretty. It's got to be marketed. We got to figure it out. And then on the cabinet is a toaster. You ever gone and looked at? There are 700 different toasters in this world. Do you want 2 slots or 4 slots? Do you want 6 slots? Do you know they make wide slots to cook Texas toast-sized toast in? And then that has a little windy thing in it. Do you want the windy thing to hold the little toast or not have the windy thing? Because the windy thing costs more money to grab your thin toast, but you can just buy it where it's just a big thing, but then your thin toast just rattles around in there and you can't have that. But it's going to cost you $20 more to buy the more expensive toaster, and then you just stand in the toaster aisle and do the same thing. Like, which toaster am I supposed to get? We're so driven by consumer stuff, you can't even go to Walmart and buy a toaster before getting online and reading about which toaster should I get, where you talk to other people who've made the same choice, and then they tell you, I like this toaster. And you're like, I don't know you, but I agree with you. And I think we should buy this toaster because you say that's the toaster to buy. And then if you do any research or any reading, do you know that the companies that make the toasters write those reviews? It's all made up. Like, there's somebody's job on this planet, somebody in this world, head pops off the pillow. I'm going to work, honey. What are you doing today? I'm writing fake toaster reviews for GE for 8 hours. Just, I love this toaster. It changed my life. I found my wife because of it. Sin 9 stars. Look at me. Everything in the room. There's a spatula out. You ever gone to buy a spatula? How come there's 40 versions of spatulas? It's a spatula. Why? And then there's generic spatulas and non-generic spatulas. And when you hold those spatulas, what's the difference? One costs $1 more. Like, does somebody brag about their spatula? Is somebody like, it costs $1 more. This is clearly better at doing this. And then what happens in our world, and then in our culture, what we'll do is you'll use that spatula for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Your spatula will get weird on the end, right? You get one of those plastic ones because you don't want to scratch the non-stick surface. Then it starts to melt or it gets weird in the end. And one day you look at the spatula and you go, I need a new spatula. Then you go back to Walmart, pick your spatula up, then you go home, well, now you got a real conundrum. You got an old spatula and a new spatula. So what do? I got 2 spatulas now. I'm going to put this old spatula in this drawer, because this new spatula may break, and I may need that old one at some point. Then everybody has a drawer full of old utensils, because you bought new utensils, but you don't know what to do with the old utensils. Until some point, your wife goes, we got to clean this kitchen out. Then you get a trash bag, and you just throw all the stuff in the bag, and then you go to a store. There's a store you go to, and you show up and you go, are you taking donations? And they go, yes, we are. And you look around, and it's just full of people's old spatulas. It's just a store full of old crap that people didn't want. And then you carry, here's my bag of old stuff. And they're like, thank you, sir. Then they take it in the bag, and then somebody's job is to open up your old stuff and go through and go, yep, we can sell that, or we can't sell that. And eventually, your stuff either ends up back out on the shelves for a reduced price, or it goes somewhere else. Like, it's crazy. That's the world that you live in, of just pure consumerism. Everything is better if you have this. Everything can be replaced. Everything is constantly. What is the last item that you bought that you said, this will last me my life? Nothing. Nobody creates anything about longevity anymore, right? Like, you won't find a spatula that says, this spatula will last 100 years. They're like, here's a spatula, 6 months maybe, good luck. Take it home with you. We don't have anything anymore in this world that's created about lasting. TVs are like a trash can in your home anymore. Like, you use your TV for 2 years, I don't like this TV anymore. I'm going to buy a new TV. And then you go, and then when I turned 20, I wanted to buy my own TV. And I went to Walmart, and I got a price on one, and I saved my money for a summer, and I bought my first TV. It was $329.99. It was 27 inches, and it weighed 9,000 pounds. Now, you go to Walmart with $300, like, you want the 75-inch one? There it is. It's out of China. It's going to work for a week, but there it is. You can have that one. It's the brand is a couple letters they saw and put on there. So I don't know. It's the Yin Yang brand. Take that home with you. Hang that on your wall for a week. But then what do you do with a TV? You can't just throw a TV away. Can't do that. You put a TV out on the curb, it'll sit. There is a TV right now in South Shores. If anybody wants it, Peggy Ann Drive. It's one of those old console monsters, like 60-inch TVs. It says free on it. It's been sitting there for months. Like, you can just I don't know if I have so much respect for that family, because there's clearly not a woman living in that house. But it cracks me. They're like, wheel it out there and put free on it. Someone will take it. Ed, that thing's been out there for 6 weeks. And trust me, someone's gonna come. They'll make a fish tank out of it or something. But you can't throw them away. So what do you do with them? You just have them. Stuff. And then all that to be said, you get to all that, and then you read a verse in the Bible that says that, it says, Now the full number of those who believed were of one heart and soul. No one said that any of the things that belonged to him was his own. They had everything in common, and something inside of you goes, I don't know if I like that. Right? You feel like this. What's it mean? How far are we going to go? How much help are we going to give? What are we doing? It's weird we live in a world where we will just nonchalantly go buy things to replace stuff that we already have. But when we say to somebody, hey, here's a person in need, suddenly you're like, how much need are they in? Why are they in need? What did they do to end up there? What are they addicted to? Who's monitoring how they spend their money? Well, who's monitoring your spending yours? You got 19 spatulas at home. How come that's okay? But if somebody says, I'm going to go help this person, well, don't let them take advantage of you. Don't let them think it through. We have a weird thought in our head that you can invest in infrastructure, in things, in consumerism, but when we talk about investing in people, then everybody gets all bristly and weird about it. Well, what's going to be the return on that? What if you help somebody and you give them stuff and then they just become, like a leech? Then, if you feed a cat, it'll never leave. Think it through. Right. There's this guy in history, Maslow, he came up with this idea. He really broke some ground here. Called the hierarchy of needs. It says your basic need is physiological. So before anybody can do anything, you need food and clothing. Right? So if somebody doesn't have that basic need met, you can't do these next things. You don't have food, you don't have something to eat, and you don't have clothes to put on your back, you're not going to advance on this list. So we got to meet those needs first. Then it says safety, job security. Not just safety in I'm worried about going out and get shot, but safety in I feel secure in my life. I don't need you to pay for me because I'm working, I can provide for myself, I have a roof over my head, I'm self-sufficient. So we got to have food, clothing, someplace to live. Then you need love and a sense of belonging. So this guy comes up with his health. Then when you have those three things, then you can work on self-esteem and self-actualization. And when you talk about this, some people will go, I don't know if I agree with Maslow. I'm sorry about everything. This is a ripoff of Christianity. This is why this community in Acts is living together and sharing their things. Because if you want somebody, if you go to somebody who doesn't know Jesus and you are living in their community, in their world of Judaism and legalism and help, and these things existed, right? So you go to them and you say, Jesus was the Son of God, he came to earth, he died and he resurrected, he's the Messiah, and through his blood he's opened the gates of heaven, and anybody who believes in him will be saved. And your life will be better, and you'll have purpose, you'll have meaning if you follow it. And then they go, I don't have any food, I don't have any clothing, I don't have a place to live or a place to work, my life is chaos. What speaks more to them than what you said is true? Trying to help meet their needs or saying, we'll pray for you? That's true, you have some needs. You have some things you're dealing with. See, what this early church is consumed with and what is important to them is people discovering who Christ is. And if that meant you could sacrifice a spatula so somebody would know Christ, they were giving spatulas away like crazy. Because it's just a spatula. Stuff is not an investment, people are. And so if you can burn the stuff to reach the people, then by all means set it on fire. And that is counter to the world we live in. Luke goes further to expand on it. 33 says, and with great power the apostles were giving their testimony to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and great grace was upon them all. There was not a needy person among them. For as many as were owners of land or houses sold them and brought the proceeds of what was sold and laid it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to each as any who had need. Joseph, who was also called by the apostles Barnabas, which means son of encouragement, a Levite, a native of Cyprus, sold a field that belonged to him and brought the money and laid it at the apostles' feet. So, what they're saying is, even beyond that, there's nobody needy in the group. Jesus said the poor will always be with you. We get to act, the Holy Spirit comes, and they're meeting the needs of their church, of their people, to the place that there's nobody in need amongst them. Because people are doing things like, I've got 2 houses. I'm going to sell one house, give that money to the church. And then we get to where we're at now, right? Some of you in this room right now, you just thought this, and I thought the same thing when I was studying. I don't want you to get mad at yourself or me. You thought, and here we go, the church wants my money. Right? That's where you go. And you go there because there's all kinds of corruption inside of it. See, anytime you incorporate the manipulation of money in a consumer culture, you got to really put a lot of prayer over it and hope whoever's the one doing it can be trusted, because it's easy for corruption to sneak in and go, I can manipulate this. I can make money for myself off of this. These people are giving to God's church, and I'm the guy who's in charge of how we spend that money. So I can manipulate this. I'm a pastor. I'm on staff. I should be paid this. I'm worth this. A workman's worth is higher. And then people go, I don't trust the church. I'm not giving you a dime. Well, what's going on here? They keep Christ first. The money that's given goes to where it goes. It's why advantage if you say, what do we spend money on? I'll sit down with you and show you and tell you. It's all transparent. You want to know what people make? Ask me. I'll tell you. You want to know where we spend money? Ask me. I'll tell you. There's no secrets. It's why advantage no pastor makes different. Like if you're a pastor, you're on staff, we all make the same thing across the board. You get more money if you work here longer, period. Like we're not paying lead guys more than we're paying children's church guys, because children's church guys work more. Don't tell Nathan I said that. But there has to be trust built within the body that where money comes in, money can go out to help people. But what's convicting to me this morning and convicting studying this is somewhere along the line, we as a church on the whole have forgotten the calling that's put upon us. That it's not just about standing up and saying, Jesus has a plan and he loves you, but it should be a social approach to society to say that if you're a part of Christ Church will provide for you. And more than just spiritual, but both physically and spiritually. We as Christians should not balk if somebody says, I need help with my power bill, or I need help with this, or I need help with that. That should not be something we balk at. But instead should be, this is a way to love and care for somebody and encourage them through currency. Stop and think about what we're hoarding. It's paper. Right now, I'm trying to annoy my little brother to death. And so every time we talk, I'm like, I don't believe in currency. And he gets so mad, and it's so much fun. But isn't currency weird? The idea of currency is bizarre. Welcome to Pat's Brain. I got the mic. Nothing you can do about it. This is what happens when you sit in a care room by yourself for 6 hours. Currency is bizarre. Like somewhere along the line, as a society, we decided, I don't want to take a turnip from you and I'll give you a potato. Because I've got 20 potatoes and you've got 20 turnips, and we could each have 10 and 10, we'll just trade. We were like, we need to establish some sort of intrinsic value for our turnip and our potato. And so what should we do? And somebody stood up in the back and said, let's use paper. Huh? Paper. We'll put someone's picture on it. And we'll make a number and put on there. And then we can all just use the paper. Well, can't we just trade this? Like, why do we have, well, because Jim figured out how to grow 7,000 potatoes. Nobody can ever eat all that. But the potatoes have value. So we need to figure out, we need to make a system to pay for the potato. And then as a society we went, I'm onto this paper thing. And then we all just collectively agree that the paper has value. So much so that we kill ourselves to get it. And work jobs we hate, do things we don't like, to pay for stuff we don't need, to impress people we don't care about. And then it's like a bragging thing. How much paper have you accumulated? How much stacks of paper? Hip-hop literally says that. I'm making stacks of paper. Get your paper. I hear that school time kids like, you gotta get your paper, Mr. E. What are you talking about? Doesn't society seem better if we all just live together and love each other? And if you need beef, you just go down to the guy that has cows and you go, hey, I got turnips. Can I trade it for some beef? And he goes, I do like turnips in my beef stew. Sure. Doesn't life seem easier when you think about it like that way? And yet here we are in this world where we're all just slaves to currency. Slaves to stuff. And then you have people who have needs. And then what's scary is, as a church, it's so hard to figure out, how do you help? Like, it feels overwhelming. I used to be a licensed lifeguard. I was. I'm buoyant. I am a licensed lifeguard because growing up, the high school in our little bitty town had a swimming pool, and they offered swim lessons. Swim lessons were in the morning from 9 to 11, and then there was free swim from 1 to 3. And my mother learned her children were annoying, and she would take us to swim lessons in the morning. She would pick us up at lunch and get us some food to drink, and then we would go back, and we would swim all afternoon. And it was freedom for my mom. Having children now, I can recognize how glorious it would be to have something like this. Because of that, by the time I hit 5th grade, I was a licensed lifeguard. Because I just was in all those swim classes. And I'll never forget Miss Mabs teaching us what to do if someone was drowning. Right? Because you had to do the test. So she's like, if you're watching and you see somebody going under, somebody drowning, blow your whistle, and then this is your job now. So get in the pool, get to them, and you want to hook your arm up under their arm and up around here, and swim them to the side. So we had to practice that. And then one of the gals who was in the class said, what do you do if they're bigger than you? And they're flailing around. Miss Mab said this statement, stuck with me for life. A drowning person will drown you. They are not thinking in their head about safety. They are thinking, I am going to die. And so if you get to them and they're bigger than you, they will pull you under. So you have 2 choices as a lifeguard. 1, let them drown. It's uplifting, isn't it? They teach people that. Because once they go unconscious, you can move them and get them to the side, and then we can get them back. Or, number 2, this is exactly what she said, give them the high, hard one. And I said, what's the high, hard one, Miss Mabs? And she said, when you're in your water, kick your legs together in a scissor kick, and as you kick, bring your elbow forward as hard as you can. You'll propel yourself up out of your water, hit them across their nose with your elbow. You'll knock them out. So break their nose. She said, yeah, because it will shock them, and then you can hook them and get them to the side. And that stuck with me for life, because people who don't have, people who are on this Maslow list, who are at physiological, they're at the basic end of it, they are not having basic needs met, they're drowning. You don't understand what that must feel like. They don't get to sit at a kitchen counter and look at the accumulation of crap from 20 years of life. They don't get to look and go, why do I have 4 strainers? Like, they don't have that. They just go, we don't have any food. We don't have any food in the house. There's nothing to eat. There's nothing. I don't have pans. I don't have a stove that works. The power's off. I don't have anything. Like, the sheer stress of that. And then couple it with, what if they have kids? So then it's not just you that can't eat. You can't feed your family. You don't have anything, right? You're just starving. Now, if somebody comes into that and says, I want to help, they're a drowning person. Of course they're going to try to get as much from you as possible. And we live in a society where we want to keep people poor. Because we want to control what? The paper. Who has it? They get to be in charge. And if we just give people just enough to feed themselves, just to meet these two basic needs, just to meet their physical needs, and they're saying, we'll just give you free housing and just enough to eat. That's what we're going to give you. That they never rise above it. They never find self-esteem. They never find self-actualization. They never have any value or any worth. They're just slaves to whatever trickles down from the top. They just sit there and wait for, like, what are you going to give me today? What's it going to be? Like an animal. What is laid out for us in the book of Acts and what we see in these scriptures, whether you like it or not, it was a mandate of the church that when Christ died and he resurrected, he pulled us up out of materialism and consumer culture. He said, you worship the Creator, not the creation. Everything you have, I gave you, and I can take it from you just as easily as I gave it to you. And so because of that, if somehow your blessing is so abundant that you can look at it and go, God, this is too much, then whatever you have extra, give it to the guy who didn't get it. Help the other people out. Because it doesn't matter, because eventually you'll be with me in paradise, and I will provide everything you have need of. Do you know there's no currency in heaven? Do you know when you read through Revelation that it says the roads are made of gold, and as Western society we're like, oh, it's wonderful, so think about that. You know why it says that? Because what they're saying is what Rome values, what Rome says is important is this metal from the ground, gold. When you get to heaven, God's paving roads with it. Like the things this world looks at and goes, these are precious. They're not. What's precious is people. And when you hit heaven and you stand at the gate and Jesus said, what did you accomplish? What did you do? Do you want to say, I have these 8 people that I sold a house and I gave the money to them and I helped them and there they are. They're down there. And because of that, they were able to get education and they were able to find work and they were able to rise above it. Or do you want to say, God, when I died, I had 97 spatulas. I had so many spatulas, I had to go buy a cabinet to put spatulas in. You should have seen the spatula collection I had. And God's going to go, I bless you, I gave you, I poured these things into you. What? Well, Pastor Pat, how am I supposed to help? Give! Give money. To who? People who need it. Well, I don't know who that is. Ask somebody. We can point you towards people who need help. I can point you towards organizations in town that would love to have your money to help people who are genuine, good organizations who help people who are in need. The church should help people. If you look around your house and we got tons and tons of garbage, then you are blessed. And if you're blessed, then you can help. Because what we need to do as a church is meet these basic needs so that then people can find love and belonging because you provided. They took care of me, so I'm going to take care of them. That's how people think. People that may have trepidation about church, trepidation about Jesus, it speaks to them when you say, hey, I don't know everything about what I believe, but I know that they took care of me. They loved me. They provided for me. Why did they do that? And then we start rising in our level of needs, right? They did that because I have value and I have worth. That's self-esteem. I'm a person. I'm created with design. I can be something. I can do something. Why do I know that? Because these people have invested in me. They believe in me. When I was a disaster, they believed in me. And then it's self-actualization to rise above it and go, and why did they believe in me? Because Christ died for me. My intrinsic value, my intrinsic worth is that Jesus gave his life so I could live. And when he gave his life so I could live, then he put a community around me who could love me and take care of me and honor me and respect me. And now I'm going to do that for other people. Do you realize that if we as a society would just embrace this idea, we would not be where we are? Do you know what they say the number one cure for crime in an area is? Money. Money. That cures crime. How does that cure crime? Well, you put in street lights. It costs money. You put a police force in there. That costs money. You put people into the homes that are falling apart, and you give them money, and they invest it back in the homes, and they rebuild the homes. Money. Currency and paper changes things. And God made everything. He will bless you and give it to you, but we have to be willing to recognize what it is, a tool to reach lost people. We don't worship it, we worship Him. And what you have is because He gave it to you, and you need to be comfortable to give it all away, because what He gave to you once, He can give to you again. And if you die poor and destitute, you still hit heaven, which is described as streets of gold. I know these verses are strange. I know these verses are scary to think about, but it's something as a church I want us to strive for. Let us be a church that's generous. Let us be a church that thinks about people who are less off that we can help. Let us be a church that doesn't look and sees people as projects or as welfare cases, but looks and sees every person in here as an investment. And we as a church will put our money into people first, period, over infrastructure and things and stuff, because we believe the best investment is in someone's life so that they can find Jesus. That's who we are called to be. And if that makes you uncomfortable, I don't care. Let's be that church. Let's pray. Lord, I come to you this morning, and I pray, Lord, that you would set us free from the bondage of currency. Set us free from the bondage of consumerism and materialism and accumulation. Lord, help us to recognize when enough is enough. Lord, I pray that every person in this room would be blessed abundantly, that you would give them more than they have need for every second of every day. That from the gates of heaven, you would pour your blessing and your wealth and your stuff into our lives. But then, Lord, I pray that you would raise us up as an army to distribute and help people who need help. Lord, help us to meet basic needs in people's life so that then they are prepared for you to meet their spiritual need. Lord, I pray that you would use us in the most pragmatic ways possible, in the easiest way that we can. Help us to be generous. Help us to give. Help us to take that money and use it to reach people who are lost. Lord, I pray against that spirit that sneaks into things of trepidation, of fear, Lord, of judgment. Make us like this early New Testament church that was capable of recognizing its needs in its community and then using the things that were there and that provided to meet those needs. God, we thank you for who you are. We thank you for what you're going to accomplish through Vintage. And now, Lord, we agree in faith and step out to do those things. It's in your name we pray. Amen.